on, everyone? Welcome back to a new YouTube video. Today is a little bit of a different video here on the channel. I very graciously got offered to test out one of Leica's newest innovations, and that is the brand new Leica Q3. And I got shipped this camera several days ago. I've only had it for a couple days and I need to send it back tomorrow. I'm gonna sit down after I send this camera off and give you guys some initial thoughts and impressions of using this camera over the last 3 days. But it's been very impressive to say the least, and I'm excited to chat more with you. I'll check back in here in a couple days and give you some more information and specs and all that fun stuff. But damn, beautiful camera. All right, guys, so since the last time you saw me, it's been about a week now. And with the embargo coming up, I wanted to give you guys some thoughts on the Leica Q3. Now, I only got to play with this camera for a couple days, and I want to make that clear that this is not by any means a full review. This is absolutely just my first impressions of the camera and what I think of it. Again, thank you to Leica for sending this out to me for me to take a look, put it through its paces a little bit. Fortunately, didn't have a ton of time to shoot with this camera. I was really busy wrapping up some other projects, but I was able to snap some photos over the course of a couple days last week. And I have to say, this camera is very impressive, to say the least. Now I'll get into the specs here in a few minutes, but I wanted to give you guys just my actual thoughts of using the camera first and foremost, all specs aside. So for those of you who don't know, I had a Leica Q2 for about a year, so I'm pretty familiar with the Leica system and especially the Q series, how all of those cameras work. But I'm not typically a Leica shooter. I've made that pretty known here on this channel. Mainly use Canon, Fuji cameras for the most part, but I'm always down to try new cameras and see what's going on in the photo world. And Leica, obviously being the brand that they are, they have a pretty heralded design language as well as just a history of being a part of many incredible photographic events. Many of the world's best photographers have used Leica over the years. So it's pretty cool to still see them continuing to innovate in today's world. Now, when I'm looking at the differences from the Q2 to the Q3, when you look at it from a design perspective, you're definitely going to notice a few things. The flip screen for sure is the biggest difference, I would say, cosmetically over the Leica Q2. I have to say that this flip screen is extremely durable compared to any other flip screen I've used, and I do feel like most cameras nowadays have some sort of flip screen. This is by far the most rugged and well-built flip screen that I've ever seen on a camera, so props to them for that. It just doesn't feel flimsy. It doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart, especially, you know, Leica cameras are meant to be with you at all times. They're going to get beat up, they're going to get banged up, and this flip screen feels like it will stand the test of time. It's very well made, and it feels like just a nice extension of the camera. Versus the Q2, you weren't getting any sort of flip screen whatsoever, so this is nice if you're going to be trying to shoot a little bit lower at your hip or even above. Being able to tilt that screen is pretty helpful. Something else that I know a lot of people really wanted from the Q2 was a better way to keep the lens cap on there, and I feel like the way now on the Q3 where you can screw it onto the actual camera makes it a lot easier to not A, lose track of it, and B, it's just a much simpler, easier way to put the cap on there so it feels nice and secure. In terms of the actual body and layout design, it feels extremely similar to the Q2 in almost every way. It feels great in the hands, as it usually does, and it's a nice, really simplistic camera design, which I love. Moving on to some of the exciting internal specs of this camera. The first thing that jumped out at me was the 60 megapixel sensor they now have in this camera, and that's pretty incredible. It's a decent jump from the Q2, which I believe was somewhere around 47 megapixels. So it's a good jump from that. Obviously, this allows for more resolution, meaning that there are some new crop modes available in this camera as well. So you have your standard 28, 35, 50, and 75mm crop modes, but now you also have a 90mm crop mode as well. And I was able to mess around with this just on my balcony outside my house and to shoot kind of at each focal length to see the differences, and 90mm honestly looks pretty good. You're obviously getting a much more condensed version of the full frame 28mm field of view, but it looks great. Obviously you're cropping a ton, so you're going to be losing some resolution on that, but for the most part I think it looks pretty nice. And it's cool that they've added that change from the Q2 to be able to shoot all the way from 28 to 90mm with a single lens. Now obviously this isn't a actual lens that you're changing. It's not a zoom lens. You're cropping in on 28mm, but it does give a somewhat similar field of view, which is great. And the simplistic package that it comes in, can't ask for much more than that. The Q3 still uses the 28mm f1.7 Summilux, which obviously if you've used any Leica lens at any point in time, they're some of the most beautiful lenses out there. The character, the fall off, the bokeh is beautiful. It just has a great richness and sharpness to it that Leica is very well known for. So happy to see that that lens is still on the Q3 as well. Something that I didn't expect is the ability to shoot up to 8K video now within the camera. And not only that, you can also use the crop modes while you're shooting video to get a bit of a crop while you're shooting. I'm not sure if the Q2 had this or not, but I wasn't aware of it. So this is a pretty exciting update, especially in the video department. Being able to shoot 8K video and 60 megapixel stills in such a small, compact form factor is pretty much unheard of. And when you combine all this together, it really gives you a wide range of stuff that you can capture, not only on the photo front, but also on the filmmaking front as well. Now with that 8K video, you can also shoot H.265 as well as ProRes inside of the camera, which for all you filmmakers out there is a pretty substantial bump from the filmmaking side of things from previous models. Not only can you shoot that beautiful 8K resolution, you're getting multiple different file formats that you can really tweak to your own liking and really shoot what you need to get the job done. Something else that's also really nice is the Q3 comes with 8 gigabytes of buffer memory. So you're not really going to have too much trouble shooting this thing and worrying about the buffering, which is super nice, especially if you're not using extremely fast cards. It's going to be able to really get all the images that you need, and then it can slowly start to buffer them once you're finished shooting, which I thought was really nice. Another thing that I thought was interesting is the port selection now on the Q3. You now have 2 port options, both USB-C and HDMI, which allow for many different connections and charging and all that fun stuff. I know that was something that I really would have loved on the Q2, so it's cool to see that added on now to the Q3. I can see this being very useful for anything from charging to transferring files to plugging in external monitors, all that fun stuff. There's a lot of different options you can do now with these included ports. And I will say that the camera is also still IP52 water resistant, which is nice considering the flip screen and also the ports. You're still going to be getting that great water resistance that you need when you're shooting out in harsher conditions. One other thing on the image quality front is the triple resolution technology that Leica is now incorporating into their cameras. So not only can you shoot the full regular 60 megapixels on the Q3, you can also shoot pared down versions of this, both 36 and 18 megapixels, which gives you a much bigger variety of, file sizes and different resolutions if you don't need the full 60. And I found that pretty nice, especially if you want to be able to fit more images on a card or you're running out of space. This is a great option for that. Or if you just don't need the full 60 and you want something a little bit smaller, they have lots of options and lots of customizable features now that you're really able to find to your own liking. Also included with the Q3 is the ability to wirelessly charge your camera now on any Qi compatible device. This is pretty rad, especially if you want to be able to just drop your camera on your nightstand at night and you want to just grab it in the morning. You don't have to take the battery out. You can just set it down and you're ready to rock. And one thing that I thought was a pretty significant bump with the Q3 is the ability to transfer images much more quickly to the Leica Photos app. Now, there are several different ways you can go about this now. You can buy a cable from Leica that allows you to directly connect into the Q3, which I thought was pretty rad. Making use of that USB-C port, you can transfer images much more quickly. And also, in general, there's just improved connectivity, so you're able to transfer DNGs much quicker than you used to be able to, which is awesome. I remember when I used the Leica Photos app, it did take a while for the full res DNG files to finally appear in the app. And now Leica is promising up to 35 megabytes a second. So one DNG now will take you roughly 2 seconds instead of 30 seconds with the Q2. Now, all in all, my time with the Q3 was very brief, and I am excited to hopefully play around with it in the future. But it was really cool to see the innovations that Leica is pioneering and figuring out how to fit into such a small form factor. I think their Q series especially is a camera that a lot of people can really get behind because it just has so much built into such a reasonably sized camera. Now, for myself, I don't really mind shooting on big cameras too often, but I have to say it was pretty nice to be able to have one camera, one lens, and not really have to worry about bringing anything else. And everything from 60 megapixel still images to 8K ProRes video, you're getting so many options now that you can really plug and play, fine tune to your own liking. It really does give you the options to get the images that you need out of this camera. Now, all in all, this was an awesome experience. This is one of my first times receiving a camera before it was actually released. So as of this video being published, the Q3 is now available today at a price tag of $6,000, $5,995. And if you guys are interested, I'll leave a link down for you to go check that out. Thanks so much to Leica for sending the Q3 out for a review. And thank you so much to our sponsor, which is Squarespace, for sponsoring today's episode. Now, you guys know by now, Squarespace has been a longtime supporter of this YouTube channel and my creative endeavors. And it's very easy for me to really talk about how they have really elevated my photography career. I think when you're an artist, you don't want to have to really worry about things like making a website or figuring out how to display your work, or maybe you're trying to sell some sort of e-commerce product. Squarespace makes this extremely easy to not only design, but also really lay out everything in a way that makes sense for you. If you guys want to check out Squarespace for yourself, there'll be a link down in the description to save 10% off your first website or domain purchase. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode. We'll see you guys in the next one.